Alrighty, how's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in for the latest episode of Believe in Queens. This time, episode 40 here in the show. And we have a big one because the last time that we talked, myself, Wardy, you guys know me on YouTube if you're watching the live stream right now. And of course, we have Anthony Record, Joe Sorrell. The last time that we talked for a podcast episode was breaking down our raw emotions to signing Carlos Correa. Fast forward 2 weeks later, and we're still in that same type of limbo. Where Carlos Correa, we feel truly that he's a Met for the most part, but the deal is not official yet because there's a lot of things going on with the physical, the nitty gritty, a lot of things to get into. So that's where we're going to be deep diving our raw thoughts on all the latest with Correa, why there's a very strong chance that this will only be one of multiple episodes this week for Believe in Queens, with hopefully some breaking news happening and getting into plenty other updates in Mets land. But before I do anything else, I just want to shout out every single one of you guys in the live show and watch on replay, and also want to give a big shout out and sending prayers, of course, to DeMar Hamlin. We all know what happened yesterday in that Buffalo Bills game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So again, praying that everything is going to be okay on his front. It's a scary scene. Definitely impacted not only football, but the entire sports world, including myself. So thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family in this beyond unfortunate time. But also want to let you guys know, as always, that today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. So make sure you go over to betonline.ag using promo code BELIEVE at BLEAV. That way get yourself a 50% off welcome bonus. BetOnline, it's where the games begin. And now, folks, let's let the show begin. Gentlemen, how we doing? Joe, I see you're still in town. Not in town with me, but in town on the East Coast. And Rec looking comfortable as always. So how's it going, fellas?
Comfortable. I don't even. Is that a compliment or is that a?
Absolutely.
I feel like if you're like, how did so?
That's not a compliment.
It is absolutely a compliment.
But it's okay. It's okay.
Like if someone came up to me and was,
let me put this. Rec,
I just got off the bike. I'm sweating like crazy. Like,
are you more comfortable now versus being on set on MLB Network in your suit?
I'm comfortable in both.
Okay, fine.
Have you seen Rec in a suit? Come on, the tan suit over the summer. That was the biggest scandal in the world at the time.
This guy, what's wrong with the tan suit? Why can't you wear the tan suit? What do you got against
the tan suit's just been slandered. That's been tan suits. They've been out for.
That's because I wasn't
7
wearing
years.
It.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair.
I don't have this kind of confidence. This is all fake, everybody. Just so you know, like, this is not me. I'm not that kind of a guy. So
I don't know if someone ever said, like, "How's Joe look?" and the person answered, "Oh, he looked comfortable." I would take offense to that.
I did not know it was an offensive thing, so I retract my comfortable statement. Okay.
Damage has been done. Damage has been done. But happy New Year, guys! I missed you guys. Haven't seen you since
happy New Year. Yeah, seriously. Okay.
Merry Christmas too, you filthy animals. We didn't even do one. We haven't done one since then either. You know.
Wow,
yeah, it's true because we skipped last week for the holiday break, getting into the new year. Of course, during that time, there really wasn't anything to talk about because the only thing going on is still Carlos Correa. You know, we thought we had him, and again, firm belief is that the Mets do have him, but there's been a lot more trickier things going on with his contract than maybe what we initially realized. And we were under full belief from the start that, okay, at least to a certain extent, I shouldn't say this for everyone, but that when things fell out between the Giants and Correa and Steve Cohen sipping a martini in Hawaii, talking with Boris, getting the deal done at 3 a.m., that went in hand because the Giants or Correa, they maybe had some cold feet there. However, now the Mets have the same concern as the Giants with that broken ankle from 2014. So that's what all the talk about is right now. It's not a concern right now, but it is down the road, maybe 5-6+ years and a 12-year deal. So the Mets clearly want insurance. They want protection in this type of contract. This type of wording, specific language is what's caused this lengthy process. And every Mets and overall baseball fan is grasping at straws to just get updates at this point because there really hasn't been a lot. And I will say, and let me know if you guys agree or disagree, I kind of respect at least that you haven't seen too much leaked out there in the media. This is not something where the Mets or Boris, either of their camps, are really trying to use this as a clear leverage game. Obviously, Correa wants to get the most bang for his buck as possible on a long-term deal. And for the Mets, they want to get him at the appropriate deal while making sure that they don't have to deal with complete financial repercussions if, say, his ankle goes completely kaput, 5, 6, 7 years down the line from that surgery. And then, he himself is sipping martinis in Hawaii with a full bag. That shouldn't be the case. And that's why the Mets want to get coverage there. But Rex, starting off with you, what has been your reaction to everything that has transpired at this point with the negotiations, getting the fine print details done? And ultimately, as a player, have you ever experienced firsthand, not with yourself, I'd imagine, but with people that you know, obviously in the industry, friends, whoever it may be. Have you ever seen something like this before, especially during your playing days?
I've never seen anything like this. No,
Okay.
not with any of the guys I played with anyway. Obviously, with a catch with a with a contract of this size, I couldn't get that out. Um, I've never seen anything like this occur, even on a smaller deal. Like I've never seen, any kind of a physical hold something up for this long, for this length of time. If there's anything that happens within the course of the physical or looking at someone's medicals, it's usually it gets run through really fast. Like, hey, we're comfortable with it. Oh, we're not comfortable with it. Boom, done. This is obviously the reason this is happening. This is a big deal. This is one of the more premier players in the league. So obviously, when you're signing him to the amount of money that you are, it's just it's going to be if there's an issue, there's going to be a fiasco. I think with Correa, the way this is played out, I'm waiting to see, and I'm waiting to hear what some of the concessions are that were made by both Correa, his camp, but also the Players Association. Because the only way to really get something like this done is now to make some concessions on their side, creative concessions within the workings of a contract that are going to alter realistically the guarantee in the deal. That's what I'm assuming. That's what I see coming. It's my first thought was, okay, these huge deals, they have insurance. There's going to be insurance associated with this deal. Is there a way to put more of the risk on Correa's side? Is there a way to have him pay for some of this insurance? Is there a way for, them to take on some of the risk that comes, inherent risk that comes with whatever this ankle issue truly is, where whatever they're seeing that's really giving them pause. So to me, it's just about that and trying to figure out a creative way to figure out the contract lingo so that the Mets can basically wiggle out of it if necessary.
What about you, Joe?
Yeah, it's funny because earlier today, Ken Rosenthal reported, and he used the word dramatically. He said that this deal is going to look dramatically different than the original 12-year, $315 million contract. And, maybe this isn't pro player, and my takes tend to typically be on the pro player side, but I kind of hope that this is a much shorter deal. And obviously, for Correa, he wants that stability that, he's going to be getting paid by the Mets, being Met till he's 40, 41. But I think it would be way better for the Mets if they come out of this. If, obviously he's okay. I want that for both sides, not just for the Mets. But it would be way better if this ends up being something like a 6 or 7 year deal at the end of the day. Or if there's, a franchise like a team opt out in there somewhere. Because frankly, look, Correa is going to be a Met, right? I don't think there's any doubt about whether or not he's going to be a Met. I don't think any other team can come in at his price tag and swoop him up from us the way we can swoop guys up from other teams. So I'm really very confident he'll be a Met. I just think it would be better for the Mets in terms of building their future if they can, get out of it by the time he's 35, 36, as opposed to 40, 41.
Yeah, and when I saw that report first come out from Ken, again, this is speculation to an extent because very few things have been leaked to the media that we know. Ken was the first guy to break the news initially that the Mets, have medical concerns, and even then, that was kind of mind-boggling that it even came out. I understand that that's Ken, that's part of his job, but I even read through further reporting through Mets Rise as well that Steve Cohen was understandably so upset with that leak coming out from the front office because they were trying to keep that hush hush, and it seems like that extended things a little bit more than they wanted to, as they were already in negotiations supposedly with Correa for at least 24 hours trying to restructure, figure out the fine print of that contract prior to that report coming out by Ken saying that, yes, the Mets have concerns with his medical, just like the Giants. But what I will say about this, and to your point, Joe, I agree. If the Mets get him at, say, around the same contract, I'm not going to complain. I want Carlos Correa on this team. So does Steve Cohen, and for good reason. However, I am under the belief that should what Ken's recent statements hold true, that it's going to be dramatically different. I'm going to assume, and this is my prediction rather, 8 or 9 year deal, higher AAV around Francisco Lindor range, $33-34 million per year at an $8 or $9 million deal. I know that may seem like a lot, but
that's not drastically different though.
We don't know.
That would be like the same money. It would just be fewer years.
We don't know
I don't think he's
exactly
going to get
what
the same
Ken
money.
is saying about it being dramatically different. Is it just based on the length? Is it based on the money? Guaranteed money, I'm sure, is definitely a factor, but also the fine print details of like the type of insurance, the details. Because what I also saw, we know that Scott Boras is not unfamiliar negotiating these type of contracts where they have like special clauses. You think of Pudge Rodriguez with the Detroit Tigers back in the day, a 4-year deal, $40 million. And under that contract, it was stated that if he can't stay healthy for 30 to 35 days in a certain span, that entire contract would be voided at a $5 million buyout. A similar type clause, fine print info was put in the contract of JD Martinez's 5-year, $110 million deal that Boras also negotiated with the Red Sox years ago. And neither of those things were exercised because both those players were healthy during those time frames. But the point is that that's the type of language that I feel that we're going to be seeing, which goes in hand with maybe why it's going to be so different. I mean, are there going to be creative opt-outs? Is this a situation where I fully believe, right, Correa needs to play a certain amount of games over a certain amount of time? If he misses this amount of games over, say, this amount of years, then the Mets may have a shot to either void that contract at a buyout or something along those lines. Again, I know this isn't what Correa wants, but the ball really isn't in his court as much. If he doesn't do this deal with the Mets, what other team is going to give him a similar long-term deal? No one's going to do it after two teams, including Boras, scoffed at, his physical. And if he, for his sake, signs, say, another short-term deal, whether it's back with the Twins or wherever it may be, if he's putting himself at further risk, if he gets injured at all next year, that supposed $300+ million he wants on the long-term deal is going right down the drain. I mean, there's obviously upside to banking on yourself, and Correa did a solid job with that this past year, but there's no guarantees for the years going forward, and he's fully aware. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I think a deal is going to get done. And as I'm sure both of you saw earlier today, it was pretty interesting how Carlos Correa starts the day by posting on Instagram a photo of him with his kid, getting ready for work, him and his kid saying, but the kid has a shirt that says, "I love New York" on it. Or for people that want to get really specific, a hot dog, a pretzel, and why, yes. And then you have Correa, who's wearing a Scott Boras shirt because Boras has his own clothing line. Of course he does. And he has a glove. And specifically that glove is a third baseman's glove. And then when you look to the left, that's on the back table, everyone investigated this post to a T. And I think it just reaffirmed that Correa is going to be a Met. It's just a matter of time. He even had blue baseball gloves on the table too. So, and his actual mitt was black and orange. So are we reading into things a little bit? Yes, absolutely. And I think there's fair reason to do so. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I think it's pretty much a slam dunk he's going to be a Met. I think both sides want each other. And, unfortunately, in rec, I was going to say, obviously, on this one, correct me if I'm wrong. But to Tyler's point of saying, the ball really isn't in his court, I think in a shocking twist and turn of events, Correa right now needs the Mets a little more than the Mets need Carlos Correa. Because, when you're talking about Carlos Correa money, there's quite literally a handful of teams across Major League Baseball that can cough that kind of money up. And right now, I think the Mets are willing to give him close to Carlos Correa money, whereas, any other team that might try to come in and swoop him or might want to swoop him, I don't think realistically is able to.
I think they've been scared off. I really do. I don't think there's anybody else after the Giants situation that seemed like an odd fiasco that wasn't real. I mean, it didn't seem like it was legitimate. Now it's legitimate. Now every other team signing him to a long-term deal would come up with the exact same thing. Otherwise, the Mets would have already signed him by now. It would be over. It would be done. And because I don't think there was a team that really truly wanted him more than the Mets. The Giants were willing to pay him more, but I don't think they wanted him as badly as the Mets have shown and clearly do, considering they're still negotiating and trying to figure this out. The one thing I will say, I'm going to go back a little bit because Tyler, you mentioned this, and I think Joe, you even mentioned this too.
Sure.
Was the way that these front offices, the front office for the Mets and particularly Steve Cohen, have done a really nice job of keeping things quiet. It is such a welcome like attribute that this front office and this new leadership has, because in previous years under old ownerships, under old front offices, it didn't matter. Like, it just, stuff got leaked and you could tell that there was some form of, well, we're going to try to win over the fans, or we're going to try to win over this, the media, or we're going to try to make a point, or to lower someone's value, whatever. That doesn't happen anymore. And I love it. I mean, trades come out of nowhere, signings come out of nowhere. Yeah, you might as well just follow the New York Mets Twitter page, because they are just as likely to break a signing as Rosenthal or Passan or whoever else it is. And it's so nice to see that. It's so refreshing to have a front office that truly cares enough to bring everything in house and say, we're not going to let this get out. We're not going to let other people have their opinions, and we're not going to have talk shows and these schmucks on Believe in Queens, going on and ranting about stuff before it's real. No, we're going to make sure that we tell the people what's happening. And I think that's so awesome. Sorry, I had to go off on that little.
No, you're 100% right.
Rec, when you were a Met, how bad was the lack of trust between the players and the front office?
Honestly, it wasn't really when I played that much. Not when I was there anyway. I mean, there was a couple of times where it seemed like news got broken by social media rather than by the front. But that happened with literally every team I was on at that point. Mm-hmm. I would honestly say it was more the Brody-led regime that really, when you go out and you hire Alex Rodriguez and Jessica Mendoza, and you're hiring media personalities to be in your inner circle, you're doing that for a reason. You're literally trying to use the media to gain whatever advantage, whether it's over the players or just over the public, over the fans, trying to win their trust, and then, kind of shoo out players, whatever you want to do. You could tell there was some of that. And so, but I've seen it with other, you look at what the Nationals did to, I can't think of his name right now, hit a home run off me. Ian Desmond, we offered him this deal, and they didn't offer him that deal. That was a lie. And so you see that there have been front offices and ownership and that have gone out and said things publicly that aren't true to try to win over fans, or try to make it seem like they're trying harder than they really are, to make a player look bad, whatever it is. And it's just not true. And that kind of stuff, there's nothing to me that's, more egregious than just bald-faced lying or trying to use fans against the players, which is completely ridiculous when you're trying to grow a game and get, fans involved. And that kind of stuff, just there's no place in it in the game. And that's why I say it's just so refreshing to see what this front office is doing.
Right. Now, both of you, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the Nationals try something similar with Juan Soto before the trade deadline? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's disgusting. This guy was their franchise.
They keep doing it.
He was the only reason for anyone to buy a ticket for the last 2 years.
Houston tried to do it with Correa, didn't they? They were like, oh, we offered him this much money. I mean, it was true, but it was then they ended up looking like idiots, because it was oh, well, this guy's worth $300 million now, not 140, even though apparently he's not going to sign for that. But it's kind of crazy, that these front offices keep. The Red Sox did it with both Betts and now with Devers and Bogarts, and it's oh, we offered him this much and he didn't take it. Yeah, guy, they're worth more than that. That's what they're getting on the open market. I know people are gonna say, well, they're not worth that. No, of course, nobody's worth that much money. But realistically, if someone's gonna pay you that much money, then in some semblance you are. So there it is. That's what the free market's all about. That's what players fought for. So it's just silly that some of these teams just continue to try this stuff.
Hey, so what do we think? And Wardy, I actually want to pose this question to you first.
Sure.
Rafael Devers today. Obviously, this is a Mets show, but Devers has come up, as a long shot rumor, maybe linked to the Mets. And obviously, it's a baseball show, and there hasn't been much baseball news the past week or two. So, Wardy, what do you think about the Devers deal with the Red Sox? They did something very similar to Mookie right before ultimately trading him to LA. Do you think Devers, for that bargain price of 1 year, $17.5 million, do you think he's a Red Sox for the full season? Do you think they restructure, or do you think Devers is on his way out?
It's so hard to say, because you look at the PR issue right now.
First, hold on. That's an arbitration deal. So it's not, right? It's a pre-arb deal. So it's not it's just he wasn't going to get $25 million or more in arbitration, because just with his time, and it's just the way the system works. Typically you about double your salary, which is about what that is. Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
No, you're good. My thought process on Devers has always been the following. I just don't foresee a world where the Red Sox allow themselves to lose not only Xander, but Devers in the same offseason. So I think that completely rules out the idea that Devers could be traded as soon as this offseason. I think from a PR standpoint, from Gain, making sure that people are buying tickets, no chance that happens where they lose two superstars in one time frame. When it comes to the trade deadline, too, I also find that a little hard to believe. And I think that there is a 50-50 shot Devers is dealt at the trade deadline for sure, mainly because I just don't trust Boston and what they're doing right now. I don't trust that pitching staff nearly enough. Their depth concerns me in really all facets on how they're currently orchestrating this roster. It's something that we're going to be following a lot. And Devers feels like a guy where, you know, you might have the front office come out and say that we have no intentions of trading Devers to start the year, but it could be a Soto scenario again, where if a team really gets desperate and throws out the bag. I mean, Chaim Bloom is all about young, promising talent. He has not shaded away from trading some homegrown talent that, you know, deserve bags, and Boston is either not going to give it, or specifically Chaim is unwilling to do so for whatever reason it may be. Maybe he's still stuck in that Tampa Bay Rays mindset, whatever it's going to be. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to follow, but I think trading him at the deadline right now is 50-50 in my opinion. And I don't think the Mets are going to land him because Carlos Correa will be a Met.
Right. What do you think about Devers? Do you think he's gone before the end of the year?
If Boston is smart, yes. And I say that because they've already blown their chance. This isn't me saying that they should trade him. They shouldn't. But with what they've done so far, they might as well now, because why would he want to come back? Like, they're doing the same thing. They did the same thing to Betts. They did the same thing to Bogarts, doing the same thing to him. He's seen it play out. Like, no, I'm good. I would prefer to leave. So he's, in my opinion, probably gone. And if that's the case, you better trade him, because otherwise, what, you get a draft pick for him and you hope that he turns into a big leaguer, period, let alone a multi-time all-star, potential like triple crown type player. Like, this dude's fantastic. I mean, he hits 3-something homers, like RB. I mean, he's not like an elite third baseman. We know that, but who cares? Like, if you hit like that, it's all good. Like, the one thing I will say is with Devers and that ballpark in Boston, it sets up so perfect for him, because he's not a dead pull hitter. He's a guy who likes to go the other way. It reminds you a lot of Big Papi, just he's 100 pounds lighter, and, you know, like, I mean, but he still rakes. So it's like, he's made for that park. So going somewhere else, he's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. Great hitter, but he's not going to be the same. And that's where I would have pause if I'm another team saying, oh yeah, I'm going to give up the farm for him, because you're just not going to get quite that same production. But again, he's a great hitter. So period. If you need a guy, like, he's going to be the guy to get come trade deadline time. I don't see it happening before the season. I think Boston is going to be thinking that they're ready to, you know, make a run, even though they still have no pitching. And I don't know, their lineup looks worse than it did last year. And I don't know what they're thinking.
I mean, they're a last place team. They're settling for what, Bobby Dalbec over Eric Hosmer, who I think, by the way, is close to a deal with the Cubs. Cubs are interesting, by the way. I don't think that they're going to be all that good. But Hosmer,
they're a bunch of 500 players, literally.
Except
that's what
Swanson.
They're signing outside of Swanson. Swanson's the only guy that they've signed in a while that, to me, that tips the scales towards a winner. Other than that, everybody they sign is like, yeah, we're going to be 500 this year. Like, great, guys, like, go do something. I don't know. That team frustrates me, but I don't.
I think their pitching is trash. I think that their lineup is formidable. I think that their lineup has upside. It doesn't have talent. It doesn't have guaranteed talent, but I think it has upside.
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to mention about Dansby, I don't know if you guys saw this in his presser with the Cubs, and then after this, I want to jump to some Mets stuff to share with you all. But Dansby said that, you know, with factoring to his decision to sign with the Cubs, you know, even though he grew up a diehard Braves fan, enjoyed his time in Atlanta after he was dealt there, made note that his grandfather actually grew up a Cubs fan while living in Atlanta, and the whole family was like, how could this be? But growing up, you know, he wanted both represent the part of his family being Braves fans and also his grandfather being a Cubs fan. So I thought that was very cool as well. So it's just kind of paying homage with the family aspect. Of course, the money was definitely a big factor, but who knows? Maybe he did have similar deals, if not the same, from other clubs that he decided, no, I want to be specifically in Chicago and spend the next tenure of my career there. And if so, then good for him. I definitely think that's a really cool gesture for him to do that goes beyond, simply just, okay, I want the bag.
And don't forget his wife. She plays for the Chicago NWSL team.
Yeah, great point too. Yeah, just further reasoning. Yep, that's actually a very good point. But okay, so one or two more things I want to share with you guys with Correa, which really stood out to me, and I think we just have Steve Cohen to thank for this, is the relationship with Scott Boras. I mean, who would have thought just like 2 years ago that Scott Boras would be speaking so glowingly about this Mets team, right? It really is a change in a very short period of time with all the little, poems, whatever he tries to write to speak about his free agents that he represents. He's been gassing up the Mets, and it's nice to see him for good reason because Steve Cohen and him have quickly built a nice relationship. But something that is really...
Why would you not build a nice relationship with the guy who holds the most money in baseball?
Exactly.
If all you care about is the money in baseball.
Absolutely.
It's so funny to me because he hated the Wilpons.
I don't know. I don't want to get into what I feel about Boras right now. That's
fine.
Not the time or place.
Okay, that's fine. I want to make note here though that you look at the Giants and Farhan Zaidi came out and made note that it was a frustrating process with Correa and that they have to be tight-lipped and just say that they gave their best efforts, and they even chimed back in on Correa after the Mets deal was originally done, but then the physical holdup happened again. So they chimed in. Giants were still interested in Correa, but what we know initially when the first falling out happened was that Scott Boras, according to him, gave a certain amount of time to the Giants and their front office to negotiate and to get a deal done. From the Giants side of things, they want further time to look over the physical. And then at that point, once it reached a certain time, Boras said, all right, I'm going to start listening to other teams. That's just how it's going to go. And that's what led to Steve Cohen. Now, and pretty much cutting off the Giants in doing so. Now you see Boras giving extended time here, which just further shows you that, one, he wants to make sure that this relationship stays strong with Cohen. I don't believe that it wouldn't be anything otherwise, but it kind of just reaffirms to me that the type of way that he's approaching the Mets definitely does not feel the same, in my opinion, with how he approached the Giants. Could I be wrong? Yes, but I really don't think I am here. And this just goes back to my original point.
I think we touched on it early on when we said that Correa needs the Mets more than the Mets need Correa at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, to me, that's what that means. It means, oh yeah, okay, well, we better snuggle up close to the Mets right now because otherwise we're not getting anything near 300 million. And he might not end up getting 300 million. But at this point, with everything that has gone on, to switch to like to listen to offers again and to switch, it just, you'd be going on this process, and eventually, maybe a team would take a shot and just give you all the money and all the years, but maybe they won't. And then what's going to happen? So that's where I see that. Yes, I did. I sent Scott Boras a Christmas card. I did not wipe my. I don't know.
Oh man,
sorry.
This is great. Okay, so what we've also seen with the Mets and Correa, assuming that this deal gets done, is that they're going to have more moves to follow, and no one should be surprised. The initial reporting that came out like 2 weeks ago is that the Mets were still in the market for another bat, another arm. However, it does seem like that there's an increased likelihood that they will explore the trade market, maybe not necessarily for just a arm, whether that's a Liam Hendricks. I think that the Liam Hendricks possibility is far less than maybe what it was when it was first reported. It's going to really be a pipe dream, in my opinion, if the Mets get that done. I'll be surprised.
Who was the name that popped up? Was it Brett Beatty that they wanted?
I didn't see any reporting, like factual reporting of what the White Sox would be looking for.
If Beatty's name popped up, maybe he was someone they wanted. But honestly,
for Liam Hendricks,
anytime a team makes a big signing, then the prospect at that position, oh, he's the one in the trade. He's going to be the one. Like, stop it.
Eduardo Escobar is the name to watch. He's the guy that looks like the odd man out. should they be willing to trade a position player? Seriously. I mean, it just makes sense. While I like the idea of Eddie being on the bench / DH, I think he'd be a really nice fit there, because when you look at the deepest teams in baseball, they have Eduardo Escobar type players on the bench and in more utility roles. I mean, the Dodgers are a great example. I know that he's gotten a lot of playing time either because of exceeding expectations or because of injuries, but Chris Taylor is a guy I think of a lot with the Dodgers, doing whatever they need him to do for a long period of time and being a productive bat and doing so. He had his struggles this past year, no doubt, but historically Chris Taylor is one of those depth pieces that, stands out to me with how I could view Escobar similarly having an impact on the Mets should he not be dealt.
Well, the thing that I love about Taylor, and I feel like you kind of backtracked a little bit when you saw me get ready to interject and say like, oh, I know you didn't have a great year. No, Chris Taylor has been superb for the Dodgers. I wouldn't compare Eddie to Chris Taylor, because Taylor is not a utility bench piece. Taylor is a super utility guy. He is a starter who will start and play meaningful games at left, third, short, second, center.
Like PK before you left.
Right. Like, obviously for Chris Taylor, like, he plays some positions, like second and left better than others, like short and center. But he's done it all, and he's done it all in important moments. He's gotten clutch hits. He's made clutch defensive plays. I wouldn't, no disrespect, I really do have a soft spot for Eddie. I like him a lot. But I don't think you can compare Eddie to Chris Taylor, especially because of just the defensive versatility. I mean, Eddie defensively this year was nothing short of a liability. And,
he's just one of those first guys to pop in my head when I think of like superb depth for a team that maybe isn't going to be starting every day.
Right. But with Eddie
also, of top teams, I think of the Dodgers right away on the depth front, naturally.
Of course. But with Eddie, it's also like,
they got. What did Taylor get? 4 for 60, and Escobar got what? 2 for, I don't know, 20 or 15 or 20 with the Mets,
25,
right?
I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's totally different spectrums. Like, you're talking about a guy who got paid and a guy who, got money. Sure, I'd love that. But that's not getting paid in the big leagues. So,
yeah. I mean, with Eddie, too, it's like he's a guy who right now, the only position I see him playing on this team is
third.
A DH platoon. Not even, I mean, not a Correa, not if and when Correa is in it. To me, he's like a platoon DH guy to face left-handed pitching. And I just don't think that Escobar is going to be able to get into a rhythm. Like Vogelback can play strictly against righties and still get into a rhythm and go on hot streaks, like, for 2-3 weeks, like we've seen. I don't think Eddie is the kind of guy who can play twice a week, 3 times a week max, and get into a rhythm and get hot. I just don't see that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, especially because that isn't something that Eddie's been accustomed to for the majority of his career, right? Can he make that transition smoothly? Maybe, but that's also a risk that the Mets would be taking heading into the season. So very fair point on that one. But when it comes to updates for the Mets, there hasn't been anything drastic. They, of course, have made a recent change and signing that being an Eric Hensky, I believe, right? The former player as their assistant hitting coach. He spent time with Billy Epler during his time in LA as GM over there for a couple of years. So they have a relationship, they have rapport. And Jeremy Barnes is now the full-time hitting coach now that Eric Chavez is behind the bench for the Mets with Glenn Sherlock in the bullpen currently. So that's kind of what's going on there from a coaching standpoint. And from a signing standpoint, the Mets did sign a reliever today and TJ McFarland to a minor league deal. First thing that comes to my mind with TJ McFarland is the home run that he gave up to, who was it? I think it was Brandon Nimmo, and that 5 unearned run game against St. Louis to start this past season. I know he came in relief, and Brandon Nimmo just ripped one. I think that was the final run the Mets scored there in the 9th to ultimately win that game in a dramatic comeback. So, Rec, I know that you have a little connection with TJ, so let's hear a little bit about him.
Yeah. Well, first of all, good dude. Really liked him in my time in Arizona. He was, during camp, great guy. I didn't know who he was. Like, he's one of those unassuming, kind of left-handed specialists who actually has had a great career. I mean, he's been around for a really long time. Had a couple of really good years, both for Arizona and since. And, I think his last couple of years haven't been quite as good, but he's the type of guy that could eventually make an impact. I mean, this is a nice left-handed piece to have, presumably in AAA for a little bit. I don't know what his opt-outs are. He could have an opt-out at the end of spring training or whatever if he doesn't make the team. Who knows? But it's a nice depth signing for the Mets. I mean, this is a guy who can come in. He's been in big situations. He's, pitched in the playoffs. He's pitched for competing teams. He's done it all, and he's done a great job left on left. So realistically, fantastic signing. And like I said, really good dude. So he's definitely one of those guys that has a little bit of like the old dad bod type thing, but doesn't matter when you're a pitcher. It doesn't even matter in baseball. You don't have to be an athlete. You just got to be a baseball player. And dude's a pretty darn good left-handed pitcher.
Yeah,
we need just like a weekly segment of like who the hell hasn't Anthony Recker played with it.
Yeah, with Arizona specifically.
It's weird. Like it really is. I don't even. Okay, so the kid with the Dodgers, Ellis.
AJ Ellis, the catcher.
No. Oh wait, no, Ellis. Who was the reliever this year that was really good for the Dodgers? See, I can't even remember his name right now. He was fantastic.
It's a new kid every year, so I'm
oh, wait, would it be like Elias? Does he throw like super hard, get a little wild at times?
No. I'm gonna have to find it now. You guys are gonna have to give me a second. Anyway, I didn't even remember that I played with him until I was literally on the air at MLB Network. We're talking about it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I played with him in Atlanta. What am I? I didn't remember that. Like, that's how weird it is. Like, I have Evan Phillips. Yeah, I just saw it. Yep, that's who it is. Thank you very much, whoever said that. Yeah, Jesus and Home Slice. Appreciate you guys. It was Evan Phillips. I forgot that I played with him. Like, but it's just really funny how like I really have played with so many people. It's strange. I think it's because my last couple of years of my career, I was in AAA, so I spent a lot of time with prospects, right? Like, so I saw a lot of prospects in prospect-rich organizations, whether it was Cleveland in 16, and then Atlanta in 16 and 17, and then Arizona in 18. So like, I got to see a lot of young kids like right before they made it to the big league. So yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Been around too much. You're on some 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon shit. MLB Network needs to make that a segment, by the way, and I want residuals on that shit. Like, you know,
get on it. Yeah,
Anthony Recker has played with Lou Gehrig through 6 degrees of.
I bet we could find it, like, because I'm trying to think of like.
You played with Bartolo Colon, right?
Yeah.
So we could link you with Lou Gehrig through Bartolo Colon.
I'm sure. It wouldn't take much, probably. That would be
like 4 degrees.
Be fun. I like those. That's a fun game.
Yeah.
So TJ McFarland.
I'm going to recommend that now and say it was all my idea.
I bet.
Love that. So I see this move by McFarland today, and during the same time frame, we see Alex Claudio sign I believe, minor league deal with the Baltimore Orioles, or a different team that isn't the Mets. So wishing Claudio all the best. McFarland feels like quite the upgrade, in my opinion, from Claudio, because he's been a major leaguer for the past decade plus. That's on a minor league deal. Will likely have an invite to spring training, and he is the perfect example of what is so many relievers in baseball. Good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good year, medium year. You know, it's just up and down, up and down, up and down. And he's on pace to have a good year next year. We're basing it on this type math. So last season, he had a 6.6 ERA in 32 innings with St. Louis. Not good. Year prior in 38 innings, 2.56 ERA. Very good. Then the year prior, you saw 2.35, 4.35, 4.82. Just a flat 2 in Arizona in a whopping 72 innings. That was far and away like his best season. So he's had some hinge on seasons up in the air, you know, in the mix there. So I like.
What year was that he had that great season in Arizona?
I think that was the year that you
2018.
So he had a great. I heard he had a great catcher in spring training.
Oh, did I get him ready in spring training to go and do it in the big leagues, and then I just sat in AAA all year that year? Yeah.
Okay, we have Anthony Recker to thank for that amazing.
Oh my God, Recker's going to be the bullpen catcher this year. The Mets are watching this right now. They're going to make him the bullpen catcher.
If I'm the bullpen catcher, the Mets win 125 games.
Yeah, you're an upgrade over Racanello.
Racanello? Yeah, I'm an upgrade over Rack and
Langill.
My guy Langy, yeah.
Oh man,
yeah.
Langill threw me so many balls and beat me.
Langy's the Canadian, like used to catch back in the day, but he just like gets. He's hilarious.
Are they both
of them?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't they both with DC now?
I don't think so.
Because I know that.
I thought Racanello was still Met.
They were definitely still there last year. Yeah, they were definitely still there.
Because I know that they made a lot of changes from the bullpen and catching side of things, and like majority of those guys went to the Nationals last season. I remember that. Ricky Bones was in that group too.
Well, Ricky Bones, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, I mean,
Ricky Bonus.
Oh,
is it Bonus? I can't call him Bones.
No, you can't call him Big Boner either.
I love Ricky. Ricky was awesome. Ricky was my guy. Like,
yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the bullpen, so.
I had a catch with Ricky once when I was working for the Mets. I got there like super early, and like it was BP. They were just goofing around, and I was up in the stands, and he kept throwing it to me and throwing it back. He always had a smile on his face.
Oh, always smile. Best BP. I mean, which is crazy because most pitchers are terrible BP throwers.
Yeah,
he was awesome, which means he gave it up when he. Oh, that's how you know. That's how you know. No pitcher, like any good pitcher, is the worst BP thrower you'll ever see because they can't control like where their ball just moves all over. I shouldn't say they can't control where it moves. They know where, but it just moves. You want a straight, like just
groove it. Yeah,
groove it.
They're all Dustin Mays in there, where he has like too much movement. It's too much to handle. He's nasty. That's what I think of when you have the guys going all over the place. Well, I really don't think there's much else that needs to be said. You want
to do 5 minutes of questions? Do we have questions? I'm on my phone. I can't see the
yeah. We can do 5 minutes of questions. Then we'll wrap up the show. And actually, before we do, I do want to make an announcement for people listening to the pod because even if we do another episode this week. No.
Oh, okay.
No. I actually have a big announcement because I'm speaking on behalf of Steve Cohen. I'm shouting out anyone that wants to be involved. Citi Field this Saturday, January 7th. It's hosted there. They are having a community visioning session at Citi Field. It's going to be in the Piazza Club, and anyone and everyone's invited. I'm going to put the link down below in the live stream here on YouTube after this is live. And if you're listening wherever you get your audio podcast, I'll put the link there so you can RSVP and sign up. What they're doing is they want as many Mets fans in the community as possible to attend. It starts around 2 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go until around 4:30 p.m. or so and share their thoughts on what they want the Mets to do with the 50 acres around Citi Field because they're going to be revamping everything. They're changing the parking lot. All the empty areas of just asphalt, they're changing completely to give the best fan experience imaginable.
Can they take away all the tire shops?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Steve Cohen.
I think if they tear those up, though, it might like unearth some crap that makes like New York turn into a big sinkhole. I mean, that was like Tyler. That was a legitimate concern. I know the Wilpons talked about doing that years ago.
Oh my God, really?
There might be some chemicals in those old like garage shops that could do some damage if you dig those up the wrong way.
Well, they're gonna find out, I guess, if they haven't already. Jesus,
we'll all find out. Yeah.
But anyways, I'm gonna be in attendance. Steve Cohen is going to be making a guest appearance there. Some people from Point 72 will more than likely be there too. A lot of Mets minds will be there, so make sure to check it out. All you gotta do again is sign up using the link that I will have in the live stream right after we're live here. So make sure you click on replay. Click at all that fun stuff so that way you can RSVP. And for anyone listening for the audio podcast, the link will be available in the description of episode 40 here if you want to get a chance to meet me and also just be a part of the experience and share your input as a Mets fan and just give your recommendations as to what you would like to see Steve Cohen and the Mets build around the surrounding area of Citi Field because they're doing a complete revamp and it's going to be a really fun event. So make sure you're there. But okay, so let's get to some questions now, shall we?
You know what we didn't talk about, by the way?
What didn't we talk about?
Did you guys see that Dom Smith signed with the Nationals?
Yeah. I actually wanted to mention that when we were speaking about the Nats a couple minutes ago.
He's gonna kill us.
He is going to absolutely rake. Like,
I'll be honest with you guys, man. I'm a huge Dom Smith fan. I love the guy.
I mean,
just as a person,
a good guy.
He's the best. Like he is the best. And to see everything he went through with the Mets, like I know the mental struggle he went through, which caused some of the play that wasn't what he would have wanted it to be, what fans didn't want it to be. And I get that. I hope he gets a shot. I really do, because he's really talented. The ball, I think, the juice ball a little bit, it helped him in some ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And, hurts him now that it's not so much, but at the same time, man, he can find a barrel, and he's that type of guy. He doesn't strike out a ton. Like when he's right, he doesn't strike out a ton. Barrels balls up, line drive guy. Like
gap to gap,
he can hit the ball out of the park. Yeah, like gap to gap. Like he's a guy I envision in a perfect world with 40 to 50 doubles and like 20 homers. Like not a huge home run guy, first baseman, but like I really see that. I really see him as the type of guy who could push 280 to 300 and hit 50 doubles and 20 homers. But like it would take the right situation and a perfect season, but I really see that as him. I I hope it doesn't happen against the Mets because there's been plenty of that.
He's
but
gonna
have some extra motivation.
I
promise you. Playing against your old team, like when I was a Brave playing against the Met, when I was a Met playing against the Cubs or the A's, like it's just a different feeling, man. You just get locked in. You don't need any pre-mix like workout drink or something. Like you get into that game and you got energy. It's just a different world.
I actually spoke to Dom when I don't know if you remember. I think you were off the team by then, Rec. But they did that spring training workout in the Carrier Dome at Syracuse University, and because the AAA team had just moved to Syracuse, and it was like a community thing. And Dom Smith was one of the players available to media, and I was a junior in college. Drove like the 3-4 hours to go cover that. It was also the same day DeGrom had signed his extension at the time, and Dom was just like the nicest, friendliest guy out there. And I also remember
nicest dude in the world.
When he was drafted out of high school, he's from, pretty close to where I live now in LA. He's from like the Hawthorne area. And he was a skinny kid. Obviously we've seen Dom and, he's had his struggles with weight and maintaining it, got big, lost a lot again. But when he got drafted, he was the skinniest kid. And to your point of being a line drive hitter, man, he was just taking BP at 17 years old, spraying line drives, gap all over that ballpark. It was the prettiest swing, almost like Keith Hernandez-esque type swing at 17.
Well, you know who he modeled his swing after, right?
Would it be Darryl? Because I think they went to high school in the same
Bonds.
place.
He grew up like the biggest Bonds fan. Yeah, he even did an interview with him.
I thought you were going to say me. So
yeah. Speaking of you, Rec,
and that's why I became a PO.
Speaking of you, Rec, I just looked this up. I know that your best numbers in your career came during your time with Atlanta, but you also were an Atlanta Braves killer when you were on the other side. You had a 276 average, home run, 5 RBIs, 6 runs scored in 10 games against those same Atlanta Braves.
I'll tell you, if I could have played every game of my career at Turner Field, I would have had a much different career. I love that place. I don't know why. Like the ball doesn't go anywhere. It's not like a place that's like prolific for homers, right?
Cincinnati.
But I saw the ball so well there. So well. I love playing against the Braves though. Like when you're a Met and you get to play against the Braves, even though they weren't that good for some of the years I was there, it was a different feeling. Like those games were just honestly, I always kind of liked playing against the Nationals too, because when they were good, that stadium was electric. And like, it just kind of got you like when you're the road team and the stadium's going nuts, like it's fun. Like it always got me going. I love being on the road in like big environments. I loved it.
And Met fans also always traveled really well to DC. I've never been to Atlanta.
Oh my God. They traveled well everywhere. Come on. Like everywhere we went, like when we were good, 15, everywhere we went, the Met fans practically outnumbered home fans. I mean, unless you're in LA, something like that. But, whether the 7-line army came or not, like it was awesome. Like I can remember being in Cincinnati, being in some of these other like towns, and Met fans outnumbered the home fans.
It's a ridiculous fan base. It's the best. You want to do one question and wrap it?
Yeah. We'll take a couple. I want to shout out Bubba Gump, and also there was someone else. I missed her name. I apologize. Thank you guys for becoming members on the YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate that. Make sure to rate and review wherever you get your podcast too, aside from subscribing here on Wardy NYM, folks, so you don't miss out. Dave with the donation. Thank you, Dave. He says Dom signs with the Nats. They're now the World Series favorites. Absolutely, Dave. Who says no? Thank you for the donation. Grant from Jenny Mets on Twitter, the best Mets fan page you'll find out there, over 50,000 followers. Shout out to you, Grant. He says, Rec, what was your favorite organization you played for? Is this a tough question for you to answer, or is there a clear favorite?
It's only tough because I have a lot of love for the A's. They drafted me. They gave me a chance. They didn't release me after like a year, which I don't know why.
After your debut.
Yeah, like that too.
And you grew up an A's fan, right?
I grew up an A's fan, but like, being in the system, there wasn't any other organization, or where there weren't many other organizations that would have given a kid like me the shot that they gave me. Most other organizations at that time were very much like, oh, we drafted you. You're going to do this. You're going to go here. You're going to work out. You're going to like the A's basically drafted you and said, yeah, go show up there and do whatever you want. And it's such a great learning tool. They used it as a learning tool. it was such a great learning tool because it was, we draft a bunch of guys with a lot of talent and we try to develop them and we give them every tool necessary, but we're not going to tell them what to do one time. They're going to have to come to us and they're going to ask questions and they're going to work their butt off and they're going to figure out how to be a professional baseball player. We're not going to teach them how to be a professional baseball player because I mean, it's the same thing as kind of giving some, what's the saying? Give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him to fish, feed him for, like, it was literally like they taught you how to be a professional and a big leaguer by not giving you anything. Like, it was like, you got to earn it. You got to, like, you have to have that desire inside you. And they separated people that way. So there was a kid who was drafted in the round after me as a catcher. He was the D2, like, national player of the year. He, like, you know, he had a decent name, like, you know, but I was a D3 guy. So it wasn't like a big deal or anything, but we both went through our first short season together. I ended up kind of winning the job at that town, even though in Vancouver, even though, like, my stats weren't great, but nobody else's were either. But, like, I think it was just like my work ethic. And then we got to spring training the next year. This kid, he didn't show up to instructional camp. You could tell he didn't work hard in the off season. He showed up within a week. They just released him. They were like, yeah, get out of here. Like, that's the kind of place they were. It was like, you got to figure it out yourself because we're not going to give it to you. And that gave me the opportunity to work up through a system that rewarded people for just doing the right thing. And then I was able to get myself into a place where I developed into a better baseball player because I was drafted I was still basically a good high school player when I got drafted because I came out of a D3 school. Like, I never saw someone throw 90 miles an hour. Never. Until I got to the pro ball. Like, it never happened. And all of a sudden, like, dude's throwing 96 in on my knuckles. I could tell you that being in the Indians, then now Guardians organization, like, that was so refreshing because the way they set things up, the way that they kind of went about their business, it was just different. It was different than anywhere I'd ever been. I loved being there. I actually really liked the Diamondbacks. They just never gave me a chance. Like, so, like, there's some bitterness there, but, like, I enjoyed what was there. If I had to pick one, I'm sorry. I didn't even talk about the Mets. Idiot. They were the ones that gave me, they were the ones that gave me the chance in the big leagues, right? Like, so Oakland gave me the shot in the minor leagues to prove it, to get there. And then I got to the Cubs. They didn't really give me a shot. Well, then I got to the Mets and they were the ones that said, yeah, like, we'll give you a chance, go out there and play. I know Sandy wanted to get rid of me after the first season, but I think Terry ended up kind of convincing him to keep me around. And, like, so realistically, they gave me the shot to be around for 3 years and they gave me most of my big league time. And then the Braves gave me another shot. And I thought I put together a great half a season there. I thought it was going to turn into more. It didn't. But yeah, it's hard to pick one. I would say probably A's, Mets, and I enjoyed what Cleveland and Arizona did, but I wasn't there long enough. So really, A's, Mets, like, it would just be, I don't know which one, but I love both of them.
So you have no negativity with all the organizations that you've been to. It's basically what
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, yeah, he was brief about the Cubs.
I was very brief about
the Cubs. I forgot about
very brief about the Cubs.
You're right.
Yeah, Jed Hoyer.
Read between the lines on that one.
Not a fan of Jed Hoyer.
Okay.
Not at all. No. Last day, I'm just going to get into it. Last day of the year, 2012. Last day of the year. We are getting ready to go out and play a game. We're terrible with 100 and some losses. I just got there. I got traded. Actually, I was one of the last, like, waiver trades because that was one of the last seasons they did the whole. Well, actually, that's not true. They kept doing it for a few more years. But anyway, I was traded like August 20 something. I don't remember when it was. And so I get to Chicago. I went to the minor leagues for a couple of days, and then I came up. Spent the month up. We were terrible, like I said, but I think I started like 4 games. We won all 4 games. And I'm not saying it was because of me, but, like, we won all 4 games. I caught 3 of them. I played first base at one of them. And the last day of the year was actually my 4th start. I was catching that day. And they called me into the office before the game. They were calling everybody in the office, doing the end of year meetings. Started the meeting, Dale Svame, hey, Rick, we appreciated what you did. You did a nice job with us, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Went on to the hitting coach. You were awesome. Loved you. Hard work ethic. Really liked having you, blah, blah, blah. got to, I think it was the pitching coach who I don't know, for some reason it just wasn't there. And I think that's where things went bad. But, he said a couple things, and then Jed just kind of interjected. He was sitting in there. Theo wasn't in there that for these, at least not for me, maybe for some other guys. And Jed just interjects, goes, "Oh, Rec, by the way, I just wanted to get this out of the way. We're gonna designate you in 10 days before the game. I'm supposed to go out and play. We're taking you off the roster. We don't care about you."
In 10 days?
Yeah, well, end of season, which is like that's like the time frame to when they can start
Still,
doing that,
though,
guys.
I would have been.
And so I was
furious.
Like, "What the cool, man! Like, that's awesome. I'm gonna go play a baseball game, knowing that right after the game, I'm not a Cub anymore. Like, this is great." So I just I was just like, I'm just very bitter about that whole experience. And yeah, it was weird. Like, because then I think it was the pitching coach asked me, he said, "Did you feel like you were ready to play every time you went out there? And like, did you feel like you worked hard and you did what you needed to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, guy, like, that's what I do. Like, that's how I got here. I work hard. Like, there's nothing else for me to do. So
right.
I didn't get here because I'm really good. I got here because I worked hard." Like, and when he said that, I was just like, all right, like something got lost in translation. Like, I didn't have very many coaches in my day ever say anything negative about me and my work ethic. And like, that was just like, all right, well, see you guys later. I'll go somewhere else because you suck.
Yeah, the D3 kid got there on sheer laziness. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's I was. I don't know if like they didn't know anything about my past, and they just like looked at me and thought like, "Oh, here's some young kid," which I wasn't even young. I think I was like 28 at the time, and like, and I'm like, I don't know. I was really thrown off. It was a weird meeting, and then we won that game, and then I left. See you later.
Jeez.
I had 4 wins that year with them, and they had like 5 on the year. So
talk your shit, Rex. Talk your shit. That's ridiculous. I'm honestly not too surprised. I mean, this is, and then we'll wrap things up. But I personally have never been a lover of the Cubs front office wise. Something that stood out to me that really bothered me is just, you think of the core that they had after winning the championship, over this past half decade, whenever they won, right? Right after the Mets had their run with you. You see Baez, you see Bryant, you see Rizzo, you see Contreras, all these guys. And Hoyer was so stubborn, having to stick right up his ass and just not willing to commit to anyone in that core group for at least a fairly decent period of time, when that team had so much potential. And I feel that they fell off a cliff way too early, way too young still, from when they won it all, to just not be that's a team, in my opinion, that should have had far more success than what it had. Maybe I'm wrong for saying that, but
pitching also wasn't sustainable. Arrieta retired. He fell off.
But those are things that you should be able to fix, one way or the other.
Right.
The scapegoat should not be the vets, the guys that have carried you.
Well, what's weird is all those guys, their core that came up, they were still fairly cheap. I mean, Rizzo had signed a deal by them, but even his deal was cheap. And so, go out and sign some pitching, make it happen. And they didn't.
That's right. They got Eric Hosmer now.
I remember when they gave an offer to Rizzo, and it was so insulting. He just was bewildered by what they had originally offered him, which then of course led him to be no longer part of the organization now with the Yankees. But yeah, just whatever, Jed, you do you, let's see how that goes for you. But we got one more donation here, and that's from James. He says, "I love to hear Rex take on what he saw with Spider Tack LFGM." Okay. All right. Well, looks like we're going to be a couple more minutes. So Rex, take it away.
Honestly, we're not. I never saw Spider Tack in the game until
interesting.
Until what was that, the 2020 season or 2021 season? I don't even remember. When some of that stuff started coming out, I mean, I knew there was sticky stuff. Okay, so I'll get into this real quick. So we had a bag in the bullpen in New York, and every team I was ever on. So don't get me wrong. This isn't just New York. There was a bag. It was literally the cheap bag, the sticky bag. In Oakland, when I was in the minor leagues, we during spring training, we had a guy that came over from the Yankees He was our minor league pitching coordinator. He literally had a station at the minor league during minor league spring training of how to cheat with the baseball, like how to make it do what you want, put stuff on it, like whatever you wanted to do. And so like that was a thing like that, you know, and as hitters, it is what it is. And as pitchers, like it is what it is. But like I can physically remember being in New York, and we had like the little bag and in the bullpen, and I would use it. I would put it on my shin guard because the balls get really slick. And so like I needed to throw to second base. So I'm just tapping my fingers anytime someone got on first base and there was any threat to steal. I'm just tapping my fingers on my shin guard, trying to make sure I'm ready. Like I got something on my fingers. Because if I don't know where this thing's going. So like it was never like nobody ever really cared. Now when it got to the spider tack, because we started understanding the revolutions of the base, that's different. Like that was a whole nother level. That was, you saw like dramatically increased performance from guys who never did that before.
Yeah, RPM just through the roof out.
Yeah, we're talking about the names that we know, the Garrett Coles, the Trevor Bauers, like guys like that who just clearly knew how to use this stuff. And that became like a different thing. But outside of that, like, you know, I didn't care. I wanted guys to have like something on their finger so that I didn't get hit in the face. Like, I know
that's what a lot of players have said from what I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen, look at the numbers for hit by pitches the last couple of years since they just literally took it away.
Yeah. Like, it's almost like the MLB used that excuse, if you will, that this is going to get rid of hit by pitches as just a scapegoat. And I will always stand firm. It's because they changed the baseballs because they had historic lows offensively to start the 2021 season. Can't tell me otherwise. I'm sticking with that theory.
I wish the Pirates had some sticky stuff when they hit Marte and effectively ruined our season.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the Mets lucked out. Let's put it this way: the Mets lucked out for the majority of the season, hit more than any other team by a wide margin, and thankfully didn't sustain much injuries. And then it finally caught up to them at the worst time possible. That's just how baseball works.
I gotta respond to Pat here. I'm sorry. I enjoyed playing for the Braves. Yes. I'm sorry.
Thank you for the donation, Pat. Pat, don't worry.
The second year there sucked because I was in the minor leagues almost all year. The first year was great.
Okay, so then for the second year, give him a hell yeah. You got
hell yeah for the second year. Although I did start the year in the big leagues, and they did give me big league time. So
if Pat didn't get that, he was demanding a refund.
Okay, you know what? We went on longer than I expected, but this was awesome. Rec, we love to hear your insight. I think this is something that we should be doing more often, as long as we have time to just really pick your brain. Because, again, there's so many things that we haven't really even asked or talked in depth with you yet, at least for the show, regarding your playing career. And insight like this, especially with how you were treated by all organizations, is new news to a lot of people, and they definitely appreciate that from what I'm seeing here in the live chat. I'm sure for people listening on audio too. Ali, thank you for the donation. He says, "Gained ready for Correa!" Exclamation. Yeah, we all are. We're excited. Like I said, when the Correa news does happen, whether it's tomorrow, the next day, the next day, we will be coming out with a podcast not long after that to further break down and just act like, for me at least, a little kid all over again. On Christmas Day. I mean, I'm getting two presents at once. It feels like, from the news originally happening, it felt surreal, and before it really started to sink in, then the physical thing came up. So now it's just refreshing. We're going in this roller coaster. But Carlos Correa, we should find out more info on him and the decision with him and the Mets very soon. But guys, that's going to do it for episode 40 of Believe in Queens. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure to smash a like and subscribe on here on YouTube. Make sure to rate, review, listen wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you're attending. If you're in the area, Citi Field this Saturday, January 7th, you'll get to meet me along with plenty of other great Mets fans, and Steve Cohen will be in an appearance too. Just an overall great experience starting around 2 p.m. Eastern. But again, make sure to click the link in the description, however you're listening or watching this podcast, to RSVP, because that's the only way that you can attend. Again, January 7th. This Saturday. But thank you guys so much. That is Anthony Recker. Check him out at MLB Network per usual. That's Joe Sorrell. Make sure to check him out at the Sorrell Sports Talk podcast. And this is me, Wardy at Wardy NYM. We'll talk to you guys again real soon. Have a great one, folks.